NASCAR teams. Some of them win races and last for years, but others are not so fortunate. But then there's some that never make it to the racetrack or can never find the funding to actually start the race. Those are the type of teams we'll be looking at today. Some of them were meant to win the race, but others were just meant to be a starting park car. Let's take a look at all these 5 teams that never started a NASCAR race. Our first team for today is Last Chance Racing. They're a family-owned team racing in the Arc and Menard Series West and sometimes East Series. They announced that they were going to be making a start in the 2023 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, but throughout the entire season, they never showed up and didn't make a single start in the number 39 truck for Ford. They didn't have a driver set up either or a sponsor, so they would definitely need those two things, obviously, race. So they didn't make it to the track at all that season. They never even showed up for qualifying practice. I mean, they probably would have had a tough time even making the race, since there's always races where trucks go home, and they probably would have no owner points. I don't think they were supposed to run full-time or anything. So, yeah, that would have been an issue for them making the race, too. Probably wouldn't have really worked out as well as they thought. And, yeah, that would have been unfortunate there. But they never even made it to the track anyways. I'm sure they would have been probably like a back marker team, but it would have been nice to have another team in the truck series. But, unfortunately, they were just never able to make it to the racetrack. The next team is actually pretty well known and isn't out of the question yet if they'll make a start, but they had plans to start Cup Series races in 2023 but never actually made it to the track. That is 3F Racing. So they right now race in the NASCAR Euro Series with Ryan Vargas. They also plan to make starts in the Arc and Menard Series next season in 2024. But there's no plans right now or anything in place for them to make Cup Series starts. They first announced that they wanted to go Cup Series racing in July of 2022, and it's been over a year later, and they still haven't made a single start. We haven't even gotten any news of when they're going to make a start or anything like that. They've only really raced in the NASCAR Euro Series, and if it's been this long, they still haven't announced anything. I'm going to lean to more they're not ever going to race, because that seems to be the trend with all these things when it just takes forever, and I feel like they're just going to cancel their Cup Series operation, unfortunately. I mean, Ryan Vargas doesn't have any NASCAR Cup Series experience either, so I don't know what driver they would use. They could use Vargas to make his Cup Series debut, but you never know. So, you never know. They could show up one day, be a competitive team, and maybe even win some races, but we'll just have to wait and see if 3F Racing actually ever shows up. For now, they're a NASCAR team that never showed up to the racetrack. The driver for our next team was actually supposed to be Eric Jones in the 2020 Truck Series race at Charlotte. It was supposed to try and capture the bounty that Kyle Busch put up for any of the Truck Series drivers to come in and try to beat him in that race. And the team name is, get ready for this one, Eric Jones Waters Motorsports with Billy Ballo and James Finch. Whew. The team only planned the race once, which was at Charlotte in the 2020 Truck Series race, just to try to capture the $100,000 that Kevin Harvick and Camping World put up if you could beat Kyle Busch. But unfortunately, since there was way too many trucks in the field, they weren't going to make it anyways with no qualifying, so they just decided to pull out of the Charlotte truck race. And with Phoenix Racing and James Finch with Eric Jones, we haven't seen them since. It's definitely unfortunate. If there was qualifying, they definitely would have raced, but unfortunately, no qualifying came out, and they just were forced to pull out of the race. I don't think they were expecting that many entries. That's probably the reason they had, obviously, no owners points to go off of, since there was their first race. It would have been cool to see a James Finch Toyota Tundra for Eric Jones on the racetrack trying to beat Kyle Busch, but unfortunately, they never made it to the track and pulled out of the race. Our next team we have to talk about is Team Keller Racing. So they plan to make their first career start in the NASCAR Cup Series at the 2020, I guess you technically can say, summer race at Texas Motor Speedway. It was supposed to be the spring race, but it got, because of COVID, postponed to the summer. There was no driver ever listed to drive the number 90 Axle Chevy for Team Keller, but it was reported that they were actually affiliated with Rick Ware Racing and were working out of, I think, the Rick Ware Racing shop. So don't know if that's completely true. I'm pretty sure it might have been like a Rick Ware car they were going to use, but I guess since there was no qualifying, but they just decided to pull out because I think there was 40 cars already on the entry list. That would have made 41, and since they were going to be the only one that had no owner's points, they just decided that it was best to pull out of the race. So they would have missed it anyways. There was no point of really traveling there and then just missing it for no reason because there was no qualifying for that Texas race. Definitely unfortunate. If there was one less car, we probably would have seen them on track, but unfortunately after this, we never saw them ever again in the NASCAR Cup Series or any other NASCAR Series. There was no even any news that they were going to actually race. They just showed up in the entry list one day for Texas and then pulled out, and that was the end of it. Our last team we have to talk about today is Team Stange Racing. So they first announced that they were going to race 8 races in the NASCAR Cup Series, I'm pretty sure mostly at road courses. Tarso Marcus was announced to be the driver of their number 79 Ford Mustang. But unfortunately, after that, they kept on pushing the date back when they were going to race. They cut it down on the number of races as the road courses all went by in the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series, and then they never showed up for any of the last race. When we finished up with the Roval, they still weren't there, which is the last road course of the season, and that was the end of them after that, as they didn't show up for any 2023 NASCAR Cup Series races, and we haven't gotten any news on them since then. So it's definitely unfortunate to see. I think they could have been decently competitive, maybe competing for maybe a top 25, top 20 here and there, but they definitely would have needed probably like a full season, a lot of work, probably a lot of full seasons for them to actually get race-winning material cars in there. But yeah, unfortunate to see. They never showed up. They could maybe one day announce they're going to actually come back, but I don't know how well I would actually trust them, considering they had 8 races planned with a driver or a sponsor. That's the thing. Driver, sponsor, they had all that stuff planned. All these other teams we've had before don't have sponsors, don't have drivers either. It looks very believable, but I'm guessing after that, they just couldn't get any of the equipment on the racetrack, couldn't get the car to the track either. Just very unfortunate for a team that looked kind of promising, and I would have liked to see them on the racetrack, but unfortunately, they were never able to make a start. So that wraps up these 5 NASCAR teams that never made it to the racetrack. It would have been interesting to see what could have been different if they were able to make it to the racetrack. Definitely very unfortunate for all these teams. Never actually made one single NASCAR series start that they planned to make. There obviously still is time for them to actually make starts in their series. But yeah, those are all your 5 teams. We got a few Truck Series teams in there, a couple of Cup Series teams, and that's just going to be about it for tonight. I'll throw one more honorable mention in here. It's the number 99 that was supposed to be run by Brody Kostecki, but obviously Daniel Suarez runs the 99 car. I'm not sure exactly what team it was supposed to be. They would have obviously had to change the number, but Brody Kostecki actually ended up running for RCR in Indianapolis road course race this year in 2023, so they've never made a start either, and that number 99 car went unraced for that pace scheme. But once again, that'll do it for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below what your favorite unraced team was. And that'll do it for tonight. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.